are recording, my friend.
Oh my God.
Christiaanpasquale. How are you doing, brother?
Man, as hard a time as this is right now, I'm doing great.
Yeah. I like your style. I haven't seen you in a long time, man.
I know, man. Downtown. That was the last time we hung out.
Downtown LA with all the guys, right? Jerome and Linda and Michael and all them guys. Nando, right? That was it.
We had some good Italian food. It was good.
Oh yeah, we went and ate first, and then we went to the bar to meet everyone, right? Isn't that what we did?
That's exactly what we did.
That's right.
Yeah, and it was awesome. It was a great time.
It was a great time. That was awesome.
We Ubered around. We hung out in hotel lobbies like a couple of old gangsters.
We were old school that night. I like your style. That was a good night. That was a great time. I think that's the last time I really hung out in LA was that for the Emmys? I don't know. I think it was for that, right?
So you guys were at like an award show, I think. Yeah, you guys were all decked out.
Yeah, we ended up staying at the Hilton downtown, and then you were the first one I wanted to meet up with. That was awesome. That was a great time.
My cousin Rich.
That's it. Two peas in a pod, even though we may not look exactly the same to a certain degree or live.
I don't know. We look, like everyone must be thinking like your family's a bunch of toe-headed,
balding,
gangster-looking dudes.
Yeah, and I always said, me and you, what's quite interesting is we grew up with very similar fathers, I would say, right?
Yeah.
My dad loves your dad. I'd say your dad was my father's favorite person in the entire world. I would literally say that.
You guys have said that. That's so nice. That's so sweet.
Yeah, and then my father, I think, was inspired to become a hairstylist through your father, and he became one of the top hairstylists in Chicago.
Really?
And yeah, my father was like the number one guy, and I think your dad introduced him in LA to the blow dryer, and he brought it back to Chicago, and he was the first one to have a blow dryer.
Really? Are you serious?
He talks about it all the time. I'm pretty sure that's how it went down. And then my father was like one of the top hairstylists in Chicago. He was cutting hair for like Hugh Hefner, Paul Newman, all the top dogs of Chicago. And then my father went on to open a nightclub. But me and you too, we had fathers that were very fashionable, very unique, outgoing. They both got divorced. We grew up in a divorced household at a very young age. I was in Chicago, you're in LA, and then my father moved to Florida when I was 13. But to make a long story short, like me and you.
Did you grow up in Florida? Did you grow up in Florida from that point on?
No, I would just do summer schools in Florida, and then I would do Chicago winters and go to high school in Chicago, but I went to two different high schools. I went to Oak Ridge in Florida, and I went to St. Joe's in Chicago.
Right, I see. Yeah, because you have a distinctly Chicago accent.
Really? That's crazy. Because especially all the places I even lived in San Diego for a while. I thought I might lose it, but.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it comes through. That's one that's going to stick with you, I think.
Yeah, and when I met you and people were talking about you, I think we met as kids.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, my dad took us on a road trip across the United States, and one of the stops was Chicago.
And I remember that
he had a big trailer.
Yeah, I slept in the trailer with you. It was the first time I've ever done that and ever done.
When I was just about 3 or 4 years old. So there's little things I remember about that trip.
That's awesome. But we both grew up loving so many things. It's funny. The only thing that I think me and you are different in is music. I grew up, my father was a musician. He was a professional drummer. A lot of my family.
Great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he even designed his own drums.
Cool. So cool.
Yeah, what are those famous drums? How would I forget him? He was in Drummer Magazine. What is those? Fleetwood Mac uses them and all them guys?
I forget the brand names of a lot of the drum sets. It starts with a Z, I think.
How would I forget? His car's a Zimmer, and then it'll come to me, but he designed his own left-handed drum set. Awesome. They're absolutely stunning. And
even though I'm a lead singer and a guitar player, I've always watched drummers. I've always, been really, I'm a rhythm guitar player. So like, I've always paid attention to drummers whenever I'm watching a band. That's like a majorly important thing.
Me too. Me too. A lot of our family members on the CELENZA side, they're all drummers. I don't know if you know that. A lot of them are.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if Chester was a lead guitarist. Charlie's a drummer. Louie's a drummer. My cousin Donna's husband, Mark Schuster's a drummer. So those are just a few. And then like Louie can also play like 5 instruments. He can even tune a piano. So
wow.
A lot of them, they have family jam sessions. I don't know if you know that every year.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, my whole family plays music but myself. I used to get up and sing AC/DC songs because I can't sing. That was about the gist of it.
We used to cover an AC/DC song in my band. We used to cover Rock and Roll Man.
Yeah.
I did that cover live in front of 6,000 kids with Rancid in New York City.
Wow.
We covered AC/DC, yeah. We did a really mean cover of Rock and Roll Man. We were really good at that.
See,
that was a crowd pleaser.
I exhausted myself with music because my father opened a nightclub since I was like 2 years old. And then he had 3 bands a night. We would have comedians. He'd play the drums. I called it audio assault after a while. And it almost turned me off of music because during the days they would be rehearsing or all different times. And then I'd have to listen to the bands on weekends, jam. And it just got exhausting for me. And instead of falling in love with music, even though I know a lot about music, I've seen so many performances from James Brown to Sinatra, Carole King to Elton John. I mean, my list goes on and on and on. Prince, I saw in his infancy when he was just like fold-out chairs.
I was a huge Prince fan when I was a kid. Huge.
Yeah, me too. And I saw him
all over my wall. I love Prince.
Yeah, I see all these bands with my father, with other family members, and I just never – that's the one thing I think me and you are different in because we both love making film. I think we're – you know what I mean? We're filmmakers. We both love writing books, screenplays. I think we both love boxing growing up. We love fitness and and we love podcasts.
I fought for a long time. That was my sport, boxing, growing up.
Yeah, I want to ask you later after we get into this, some stuff regarding that because I know you do a lot of podcasts and I talked to you earlier and I want to get into things that maybe you've never talked about before because as you know, me and you do so many different podcasts or videos, it becomes kind of redundant to the people that watch our stuff, right?
True.
So, but let's jump into the book.
Ask me anything. I'm an open book.
Yeah, I got to put these on. That's I didn't want to screw this up. Love Lost Long Beach.
That's right, man.
This is the new big thing. I got to order this book. How do I order it for starters from you? Do I go online or just send you bread? What are we doing?
christiaanpasquale.com, man. I got a domain name.
Oh, fucking
and my name is spelled with 2 A's, CHRISTIAAN. And Pasquale is PASQUALE.
There we go. We have a domain name named after both of us. I'm Rich CELENZA.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. So much easier. You go there, you click on the link, you click on the on this cover.
Yep.
It's just like this.
It's gorgeous.
Click on it and it takes you where you want to go to buy it, to buy my crazy memoirs.
It's autobiography or is this just stories? Are they truth, fiction? Where are we at here with this?
Oh yeah, it's all true.
Okay.
I guess people would consider me a memoirist. Everything I write about, all the short stories and stuff that I've written is all stuff that's really happened to me. So it's I guess nonfiction in a way. There's some poetic license in there, like to tie stories together and stuff like that. But basically, no, it's all real. It all totally happened. So. You are honestly, I'm not just saying this because you're my cousin. When I remember you originally were sending me stuff years ago, I didn't believe it was you. And that's no disrespect to you. I didn't know you as well, but it came off so, a lot of us get typecasted, I think, no matter who you are, right? Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Especially me as well. I mean, it doesn't matter who the hell you are, and you automatically think somebody is going to write a certain way or think a certain way, act a certain way. You totally, and I don't know if you remember even me and you going back and forth. I'm like, this doesn't sound like this and that. I was all fucked up. Like, and then you said, no, this is me. This is who I am, Rich. And I'm like,
Totally.
I was so unaware.
Yeah. It's all stuff that happened. I've been writing since I was 19, even before I had a band. I was selling poetry to poetry magazines in New York and winning like poetry contests and short story contests and stuff like that for literary magazines well before the internet or anything. I'm 47. So, I was winning like little prize money for poetry and short stories and things like that. So it's just something that I've always done. And even when it came to the music, I wrote all the music, I wrote all the lyrics, so like everything, if people ask me what I do, I say I'm a writer. That's what I am. Everything that I've accumulated in my life over the last 28 years has come through writing. Even my job, even this apartment, everything has come through someone admiring my writing and it's putting me to work, or it's just opened every door for me, really, since I was 19.
Now, were you a good student by any chance?
I was.
Were you?
Yeah.
See, I was a horrible student.
Yeah, I fucked off. My first year, I got like C's and D's. I wasn't applying myself. My second year, well, I was in theater. Theater was my thing. I was an actor. It was kind of a big deal. I was kind of considered an especially gifted actor.
I believe it.
And so what happened was my sophomore year, I used to ditch all the time. I'd just take my girlfriend home and screw all afternoon, and ditched. And then they said, look, you've missed so much school. What we're going to do is we're going to give you theater all day long. You're going to be Mr. Moore was my teacher. You're going to be Mr. Moore's assistant all day, and then you'll be in your advanced theater class. I was in senior theater when I was a freshman. That never happened before.
And I
was already taking lead roles when I was a freshman.
That's right. Now you're in LA here at this point. Where were you?
Fullerton. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. The Pasquales have been in Southern California since about the 20s.
Yeah.
So we're like an old California, family. My great grandfather Vito came here in the 20s, I think, to Sun Valley.
Yeah.
So that's how early we've been here. And then on my mom's side since the 40s. And my grandmother Ann Vinciguerra.
Yes.
They came here in the 40s too. My dad was born in Linwood in 46.
Yeah.
So in South Central LA. So we're an old California family. So yeah. And so they let me take theater all day long. I was just like my teacher's assistant, and then at the end of the day I was in the advanced class. And so I got all my elective credits. I went to theater summer camp even when I was a junior. I went to Shakespeare summer camp in Ashland, Oregon.
Yeah.
And I came back my senior year. So I made up my whole sophomore year, my junior year, kept that a straight A grade point average, and then my senior year I got straight A's too. So I graduated with like a B+ average. Yeah.
That's awesome. I wish our school. I went to a Catholic private school, high school. We never had anything theater related. There was a girls' school across the street that they had theater, but I was not really. My aunt was involved with the television and film industry in Chicago. That was the closest I knew about anybody being involved with that industry, even though Chicago downtown had Columbia, that was in Steppenwolf kind of, is that what it was? Steppenwolf, I think, started in Chicago with, Malkovich and Gary Sinise and that crowd. It seems so far away in Chicago because Chicago is like be blue collar or white collar. That's your options, or hit the streets. That was Chicago, where LA is, or California in general. You guys lived a totally different lifestyle.
Well, not really. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, I say this a lot. It applies a lot to the book that we were really kind of working class.
Right.
You know,
Gotcha,
we were,
sure.
you know, we were basically like my mom's generation was more what, you know, middle class, like post-war, you know, after World War II and the urban sprawl that happened. For them, it was a very middle class upbringing, but by the time I was, growing up, no, it was tougher. My dad wasn't around very much. My mother and my grandmother raised me and my sister in a house that luckily my grandmother had. You know, we lived in that same house for like 30 years.
Mm.
And, and then my uncles would move in, and that's not exactly like a middle class kind of dynamic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were struggling, and like we all stayed at my grandmother's house because we had nowhere else to go. You know what I mean? So,
Gotcha.
and then all the ills of, you know, there was gang violence, there was, a lot of violence and
Drug use.
alcoholism and drug use and, all that kind of stuff. So we didn't quite get the benefits of typical middle class upbringing. We're a little bit below. That's why I started boxing.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. What in the book do you describe? Give me an idea, because you've been working on this a long time. Give us an exact idea, kind of how you came up with the idea, how you just committed to it, and I mean, how many years you put into it?
It was about 2.5 years of writing. It basically is about me going from living like a total rock and roll lifestyle. I lived above this punk rock bar called Al's Bar in downtown LA.
I love it.
For 10 years. And it's like punk rock college. It was bands playing every night. You know, I worked at a punk rock boutique on Melrose called the Retail Slut. Which was like a fetish and punk rock store. I was at every, venue in town and every gig, every fetish ball opening. It was 24/7 rock and roll. And then my band, we were in the right place at the right time, and we took off. We were a psychobilly band, and which is like punk and rockabilly mixed together. And we started, playing all the big fucking clubs, the House of Blues and the Troubadour and the Key Club and Knitting Factory and the Roxy and all the, just all the big Sunset clubs. And
that's awesome.
And then we got kind of internationally known, for anybody who listens to psychobilly. We were, known in all those countries, Japan and Germany and England and Holland and in Bulgaria or, Russia, all kinds of places.
That's great.
So we started touring with every big psychobilly band. Psychobilly kind of started in Europe, really. And all the big bands that started that genre, that movement, started coming to the West Coast because there was an enormous scene here. I mean, from San Diego to Vancouver, there was a psychobilly scene in every one of those towns. So all those European bands started to come over here because there was this huge audience for them.
Sure.
Bigger than, I would say, it's safe to say that even bigger than what they ever experienced in Europe. It was enormous. And that's why all the clubs were booking us. Because we would they'd get packed, venues from these kids coming to see us play all over the States. So I went from that, like literally just not having to work another job or anything. I just basically was playing music. We gigged enough that I had a low overhead, so I didn't really have to work very hard at other shit jobs I didn't want to be doing. So I went from that to our biggest tour that we ever had. Was a 2-month tour across the country and back. And
U.S., obviously? You say, so you're saying start in LA, go where, to New York, the East Coast, or Florida? Where'd you go?
Yeah, everywhere in between. So like on the West Coast, we always did the best because it's short drives up the coast, and a lot of gigs. So you're just making money hand over fist the whole way up to Vancouver.
San Fran? Oh, okay, Vancouver. Okay, yeah, right, of course.
All the way up. Yeah, every major city on the West Coast. And then throughout the Southwest, like the whole Western Continental Divide, everything west of the Rockies, we would hit all the major cities in that town, in that area. So, but a lot of bad things started to happen. A kid got killed at our show at the House of Blues. Some kid got stabbed to death. Some venues were trying to burn us for, not paying us.
Yeah.
Problems with the van, all that kind of shit, all that kind of stupid shit.
Yep.
And it was our biggest tour. It was our biggest tour. We were touring with the Meteors, who are sort of the godfathers of psychobilly. And then opening for Rancid. For those of you who don't know, Rancid's probably one of the most successful punk and pop bands in the world. They came up with Green Day. They're from the same neighborhood, same club, the Gilman Street Collective in Berkeley. They all came out of that same area. So Rancid's a huge band. You've heard their hits. They've had 1 million hits. So it was a big deal. And then about a quarter way through the tour, me and my band had a major breakdown, major fight, and that was it. We broke up. So I had to fly to New York by myself and open for Rancid with a band that I hired in New York City called the Arkhams. It's great rockabilly band. All these Jewish kids from Long Island. And they learned my songs in like a week, and then we opened for Rancid, and then I ended up staying out there for a month because we just kept getting gig after gig. So I ended up staying in New York for like a month,
That's awesome.
doing different gigs, yeah. And then I flew home, and my band were my best friends, and then,
it's a family.
Yeah, it was a total, and they were gone now, and it was a bitter breakup, and my sister needed help. She wanted to get her own place with my niece, and they needed help. They needed a roommate. They didn't want to live with strangers for roommate because the price of living sometimes is so outrageous that people have to resort to that a lot of the time. They have to, live with strangers as
sure. Yeah.
I didn't want my niece to have to deal with that. So I quit playing music and I went to work driving big rigs. I was driving 18-wheelers, for a living, which my father was a truck driver too. Yeah. So I find myself in the same position that, that he was in, driving trucks, 14, 15 hours a day, lonely, hard, exhausting work.
Scary too, man. I mean, the responsibility.
Scary.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Up and down the mountains or the hills, weather, all that shit. I mean.
Yeah. In fact, the first chapter is a story of me towing a truck full of trucks down a mountain. So it was a car hauler, 2 trailers, Swift Transportation. You've seen them on the road. Swift, they're a big company. And it was full of SUVs. The truck was full of SUVs. Yeah. And I had to tow that motherfucker down off a very steep, windy mountain in the middle of the night one night. That's what the whole first chapter is about. And I wasn't even very experienced at that point. I was still like a really new truck driver, Gotcha. But that was my job. I towed big rigs that broke down on the highway, the big giant tow trucks. Yeah, that was that's how I started driving trucks. It's the highest and most dangerous level of difficulty is where I started.
That's unbelievable. Now, so you started the book from the point of when you quit the band, not stories previous to that, correct?
Yeah, no, it's me describing in the beginning, like the modicum of success that we had, that, we were able to buy a tour van. We were able to have our own private, rehearsal space. We were working just, part-time shitty jobs. And then the rest of our money was coming from gigging. And, we were getting a lot of recognition and even more than we were getting even more recognition than we were bigger than we realized. Yeah. It was weird. Like we didn't even kind of realize the reach until a certain point we started going like, shit, I'm getting recognized all over town. And sure. I'm going to, different cities. You know, California's huge, you know, and I'd show up somewhere. Well, like when I went to New York, I was telling this story to my girlfriend the other day. I arrive in New York City with my guitar and my suitcase. We drop off my luggage at their place. We go into Manhattan. We go over the bridge into Alphabet City, into Lower East Side. I get out of the truck and walk into a club, and someone recognized me right away. You're in the Slanderin'. I was in town 2 minutes. So it was that kind of success, like where you're like, wow, people know us all over.
Yeah.
So, you know, but yeah, I mean, I went from that to just being like a regular old schmo, just driving a fucking truck, which I hated. I hated it. You know?
Yeah.
It was really lonely, you know?
Yeah.
You're basically up before anybody gets up. You know, you're driving all day, and you know, you might say hello to the guy who signs the bill of lading when you drop off your load for 2 seconds, and then you get home after everybody's asleep, and you're just alone all the time. I kind of felt like Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver.
But after you left the band, you made a film. Do you talk about that in the book? Am I wrong about that? Right? So is that part of the, you know, you made it's basically, what is it? Kind of a documentary of our family.
Yeah. Our
right?
family, yeah.
So from an artistic point of view, you kind of went from music, even though then you had another outlet, you wanted to become a filmmaker, correct? Or were you writing?
I mean, that happened. That was sort of a magical thing that happens in the book. So what happened is the book addresses so much stuff, so much really kind of vital things about the opioid addiction is you know, the opioid crisis.
Sure.
It addresses a lot of like really life affirming things, a lot of like things that I went through that were scary and tragic, you know, a lot of very tragic loss of life.
Yeah.
And what happened was I'm driving, I'm really lonely, and I decided to go after a woman that I was really in love with. I just went for it. You know, this woman that I was like crazy in love with. I decided with her, and so in the meantime, I had all these people in tow with me that were old friends of mine from the scene who were like heavily addicted to heroin. It ended up being 4 people, 3 friends of mine, a girl that I moved down there with. We were just roommates. We had a slight romance, but we ended up just being roommates because she revealed to me that she was heavily addicted to heroin. And I had 2 buddies that were in the same boat. You know, they were just, I mean, hardcore heroin addicts. Yeah. And so I was really depressed, you know, because I've never touched the shit. I don't fuck around. And I'm just working like a dog, and they're all crashing my pad while I'm out working all day. I have these 3 heroin addicts just like crashing my place. You know, I'd come home to like junkies passed out all over my floor.
Right.
And, you know, I was doing everything I could to help them. I was getting them into detox. I was getting them into rehabs. I was taking them to halfway houses. I was doing whatever I could with whatever free time I had, which, believe me, wasn't much because, like I said, I was minimum working 14 hours a day.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I just got a bug up my ass. Like, I just remember that my father was a real shutterbug. He was really into photographs, and he made these great family albums that I remember thumbing through as a kid and connecting with my father in a real deep way over our past and all this stuff. Really interesting photographs that I thought would make a great documentary.
Yeah.
And there were hundreds of them, hundreds.
Yeah.
So I started bugging my stepmom and my mom to find these photographs, and they're like, we don't know where they are. Like, you know, they're like, we put them in storage years ago, and we don't know where they are, you know? And I'm like, well, look, let's dig those up. That's our whole family history. Our whole family history. My old man died penniless. He didn't have shit, you know, when he died. And all he left us were those pictures. Yeah. So I really wanted someone to, like, you know, I'm like, come on, step up. This is, you know, come on.
It's his legacy, really. You know what I mean? That's what he left.
Whole lineage.
Yeah.
All the way back, going from my grandfather coming over here from Italy, you know, on the boat, like pictures of him on the boat.
It's crazy.
Come in here. So it took a few months, but they finally got it together. They came through with flying colors. Everybody found all these pictures, and it took me about a year of, like, scanning them and cropping them and getting them ready for you know, to edit into the film. And I just slowly, you know, started to accumulate everything. And then the thing was once I did finally get all of the photos together, the CELENZA side, the Vincent Guerra side, the Pasquale side. Sounds like an episode of The Sopranos. When I got all those things together, I knew some of the people, you know, Junie and, you know, Auntie Mary, Auntie Lil, you know.
Sure.
But I didn't know the stories behind, so I had all these pictures, but I didn't have the stories behind a lot of it. Some of it, but not for a whole film. Then one day I'm driving to work early in the morning. I'm on a residential street, 2nd Street in Long Beach. And I see this dude walking toward me this way. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, good God, that looks like my dad. And it was Uncle Robert, my dad's oldest brother.
Yeah.
And he had been a heroin addict for 45 years, in and out of prison his whole life.
Yeah.
And when I saw him, I'm like, he was carrying 2 bags of groceries from Vaughn's. And he's walking down a residential street. So I put 2 and together. I'm like, he's got to live around here. He's walking with groceries. This is a residential area. He must live somewhere around here.
Yeah.
And so I called my Uncle Billy, and I'm like, Uncle Billy, where's Uncle Robert live? And he's like, I don't know, man, somewhere in Long Beach. And I haven't talked to him in a while. I'm like, well, get in touch with him, because I think he might live near me. And as it turns out, he lived half a block away from me.
Wow.
In the whole city of Long Beach is a gigantic town. It's 800,000 people easy.
Oh, yeah.
And in that whole city, my Uncle Robert, who I hadn't seen in 15 years, lived a half a block away from me.
It's amazing.
And he was down and out. He was living with a woman who was an alcoholic, and they both drank and, you know, hustled drugs. And everybody in their building was the same way. They were all like old burnout jailbird types. And so I got a hold of him, and I'm like, hey, man, come over. I got something I got to show you. And he comes over, and, you know, I show him all the photographs that, you know, he hadn't seen in 20 years of our family and shit. And he just started crying. He's like, I never thought I'd see these again. And he's the one that filled in the story, you know, all the stories behind all the pictures, you know. Oh, there's Auntie Lil, and there's Uncle June, there's, you know, he filled in all the blanks, you know. So it was a really miraculous chain of events.
Yeah. Those old timers are like historians, right? They're like a family library. I heard recently when somebody, the elderly, our grandparents, whoever, when they pass away, right? It's like burning a library, because they know the history of our families that goes so far back, where our generation doesn't know that, right? And it's gone forever.
Exactly. And I mean, it was hard to get what I got out of even the people that were still alive, my aunts and uncles and stuff. They're like, you know, Grandpa didn't talk about the old country, and, you know, he wasn't an open, kind of loving kind of dude. You know, he was a tough dude that fought in the war and struggled. You know, he came here with nothing, you know, kind of one of those dudes. And he didn't have these open fireside chats with your mean Italian father in those days. They're like, we don't know, you know, we don't know. But I mean, I had to dig it up myself. And it was all there. You know, my grandfather's immigration papers coming over here from Bari, and
It's awesome.
all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Uncle Robert filled in a lot of the blanks. He was my oracle to the past. You know, so I was able to
Yeah.
kind of build the film around him and him at the end of his life, which was, you know, a tragic thing where, you know, he did a lot of regrettable things, and you know, even his own son was not concerned with his health or anything like that, because he had fucked over the family in so many ways over the years that everybody was kind of done with him.
Yeah.
And, you know, but my father hated him. You know, my father had no love for Robert.
Yeah.
But I think that's only because he was such a disappointment. I think my dad really looked up to you see, that's another thing I mentioned in the book is that he was so much like my dad. They had the same mannerisms. They coughed the same. They kind of had the same laugh, the same sort of. So I think at some point my dad really looked up to his big brother and really admired him. And then he became such a disappointment that my father was just, you know, bitter about it.
Yeah.
But when Uncle Robert came around, it was like revisiting some version of my father, because their behaviors were so similar.
Yeah. You missed that.
It was like a ghost, you know, coming back to visit me. And somehow I think my father would have wanted me to take care of him the way I did. I think, you know, he would have been like, you know, keep your eye on this motherfucker, but, you know, he's your uncle, you know, take care of him, which is what I ended up doing. I ended up becoming his payee and sort of his caretaker toward the end of his life.
Yeah, and you show that in the movie. Actually, now that I think about it, I think the last time I saw you was after that, because you had a premiere for your movie that I was in LA for.
Yeah, you guys came to the premiere. That's right.
That was awesome.
The Digital Museum of Art or something like that on Sunset.
That was so cool. Yeah, and I invited a bunch of people. They came. That was fun. I had to catch
that was very nice of you guys.
I had to catch a 6 a.m. flight, and I never catch morning flights, but it was one of those things. I had to be in New York or some shit. I never booked them, and then I was at yours. I literally went to the hotel, slept for like 2 hours, because, you know, LA, I had to drop off the rental car, catch a, you know what I mean, at 4 a.m. I wish I could have stayed a lot later and hung out, but that was.
Oh, it was awesome. It was the only premiere I had for it, and it was a weird venue, but it got a pretty good little turnout. I think there was about 40, 50 people there or something like that.
It was perfect. It was quaint, and it was really cool, and everyone there loved it. Well, I already saw the film, because you already had the film come out, and I got to watch it with my father. My father was blown away by the job you did. My stepmother, Rhea, they thought you did an unbelievable job. I did too. Maybe I'm biased because it is our family, but I thought it was incredible. I mean, for being your first film, you go on a journey with you. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. I made it for no money. You know, I mean, I had some contributors that pitched in, you know, $100 here, $100 there. But yeah, me and my friend Mike Grau and this editor kid, this Russian kid that I found online, Dennis Kulikov, we pieced it together, and it was kind of like another novel.
Yeah.
Just put to film. So in a way, like, this book is sort of like my fifth book, because Angels and Oranges was almost like a novel that I just that I put to film, you know.
Yeah.
And, it was. I ponder these stories for a long time, and I just know this book and Angels and Oranges and a lot of my writing is about Southern California. I think most of the country has a really skewed perception of what California is like. It's like they think we're all like George Clooney.
Yeah.
You know, that we're all like rich and you know, driving around in Rolls Royces or something. It's like, no, there's the majority, the mass that makes up California are really working class people that built this town, you know, and that's where I'm from. And that's what another thing I mentioned in the book is how I found myself in the same places and the same work situations, the same cast as my father and my grandfather. You know, my grandfather worked at the Grand Central Market. That's where I used to shop when I lived in downtown LA.
Yeah.
My father was a truck driver. I ended up being a truck driver. And one of my kind of well-known quotes is that my grandfather was a store clerk so that my father could be a truck driver, so that I could be a writer and a store clerk and a truck driver.
It's interesting.
Kind of says it all. I found myself in the same stomping grounds because Long Beach was Uncle Robert and my father's. That's where all the kids went in the summer to go to the beach.
Yeah.
Belmont
I know
Shores.
well. I know Long Beach.
Yeah.
Well. I've spent so much time there.
Yeah, that was their heyday. And then I find myself in that neighborhood and Uncle Robert's there and I'm dealing with his addictions and my friends' addictions. And the book became about addiction because I was addicted to the woman that I was pursuing. I was like, why am I surrounded by all these fucking junkies? But I was a junkie too, in a way. I was addicted to a bad woman.
And you're addicted to writing and addicted to being creative. I think we all have our own addictions.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend said this the other day. She's like, you seem like just a constantly creative person. I've never been anything but a creative person.
Exactly.
I don't know how to do anything else.
Right.
I better make it at what I'm pursuing, or else I'm pretty useless. Except that I'm a good writer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's me. That's what I do.
That's what you do, man. It's
like
interesting.
You say, even Uncle Robert would say what you just said. Like, you don't look the way you write. You look like you just got it out of the pen. And that's just my culture. Like, where I'm from, all this tattoo stuff that's just how we get down. You know what I mean? That's
where you're comfortable. That's your identity.
Yeah, that's our whole thing. And like where I'm from, this is how we do. And Fullerton is a very punk rock town. It's Fullerton's North Orange County. Like, you could see downtown LA from Fullerton. If you're up on Bassenturi Hill in Fullerton, you can look and see downtown. That's how close we are.
Yeah.
So a lot of things that culturally happen in LA get to us very quickly. And so the punk rock scene, showed up in the late 70s or like mid 70s. And bands like Social Distortion and DI and the Adolescents and all these, Agent Orange. And there's a big Orange County punk scene that was, closely connected to the LA scene. And, I grew up in the midst of that. In fact, my mother and father met at a club called Ichabod's in Fullerton. And that's where it was just this dive bar next to a bowling alley in Fullerton. And all those bands I just mentioned, played there. That was like a premier punk rock kind of venue. It's just a windowless, shitty, smell like piss and stale beer, kind of shitty little dive bar.
Right.
And that's where my mom and dad met. So that's how deep I am in that world.
Yeah. I grew up, like I was saying earlier, in the nightclub business. My father from 2 to 13, and then he went to Florida and went into the vending business, which was gaming for nightclubs, bars, gentlemen's clubs, restaurants. So from basically 2 years old to about 40, all I did was, for the most part, besides trying to make films and do other things, but I was in the nightclub bar scene. You know what I mean? And you were in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were actually a performer. Basically, all I did was collect money and move equipment. But again, the similarities we kind of have is you worked in the clubs and I worked with the clubs or the bars. You know what I'm saying? I'm in and out of numerous type of places, and you are as well, performing in numerous places.
Yeah, in fact, so much so that when I go to a club now, it feels like work.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I should be setting up the merch table, and are we going to sound check pretty soon? It's like, you're not playing tonight. You're just there to enjoy yourself, but you have that so ingrained. And I lived above a punk rock bar where I was a bouncer at sometimes, and I was booking shows there. And yeah, I was, a song and dance man, but, I've been, a club performer and
Yeah.
We started to move into theaters and stuff like that later, but yeah, that was, I mean, we gigged a lot. We fucking played a lot of shows.
Yeah, that's your life.
Especially that first year, we were gigging like 4 nights a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We were somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big part of my life. I mean, our band, in our heyday, that was about a 7-year period from about 1999 to 2006. And then we broke up for a few years, and then I restarted it with another combo, another bunch of guys. So, I was active with that band. We put out 3 albums over basically a 12, 13-year period. It was a band that was around for a while.
Yeah, man, you are a diehard musician.
I'm going to start another band. I've had a lot of arguments with my former bandmates wanting to keep doing the Slanderin'. That was my band, the Slanderin'.
Yeah.
But I'm over it. I'm over that music. I'm over that time. It's just like beating a dead horse. It's just like I don't want to do it anymore. So I'm starting another band called the Vitriolics. That it's going to take some time to put together, but it's much more garage and hardcore punk and surf and all those kind of elements like all put together. And the gimmick of the band is that every other song we do is a cover song, but it's going to be like such an obscure cover that no one's going to know. I mean, we'll say who the artist is, but
sure,
basically we're going to do these obscure covers that no one knows, and just really make it like a hard physical band, with a lot of bashing and smashing and hard rock and roll, and like the performance ethic of like James Brown meets the Cramps meets G.G. Allen meets the Ventures, that kind of thing. It's going to be really exciting. So I'm not done.
No, so you think you went from sort of, obviously sounds like you went music, then you went into film a little bit, kind of writing, and now back into maybe the band. Do you feel like that's the next chapter? Or you're obviously going to keep writing, but now that you're done with the book, you're going to kind of pursue the band aspect now, kind of go there?
I'm working on 2 books right now.
Oh, okay, cool. What are those?
2 more books. One of them is called Bougainvillea Blues, which is another collection of short stories and poetry. And then a brand new novel called Agents of Cool.
Oh.
So I'm working on 2 books, and the band will take a long time to. Everybody's like, "What's up with the Vitriolics? When are you guys going to do that?" And I'm like, "It takes time to do these things. It takes time to do them right, and I want it to be just right, So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to be pretty fucking cool. But I'm always doing that kind of shit, and the band that I'm putting together now is going to be like 10 times what we did with the Slanderin'. Like way bigger band, it's going to have way further reach, and it's going to be really physical, man. I got to get in shape for it because it's going to be like a lot of like it's a physical performance. It's going to be really, a lot of rowdy behavior on stage, and that takes a lot of. I don't even know how I can do it at 47, but I'm going to try.
You going to try to tour as well, or are you just going to try to stay local? I mean, what's your?
We'll tour.
You're going to tour. I got you. You going to try to do an album, or are you just going to just do covers?
No. The covers. You see, like the thing is like a band like the Cramps, who I'm a huge fan of. I have like a couple of Cramps tattoos. This is the Cramps album cover. They basically made their whole career taking like really obscure rockabilly songs that no one ever heard of and making it their own.
Gotcha.
Just by the attack, like the execution of the song. They just pumped it up to 20, like a simple, like, 3-piece rockabilly song. They just turned into like a punk song.
Gotcha.
And so that's what like a majority of the Cramps albums are comprised of. But they would write their own lyrics too. But they take the stripped down bones of the song and then make it their own. And that's kind of what I'm going to do with the Vitriolics. But giving full credit to the original songwriter. But that's going to just be every other song. Every other song will also be an original. So
I gotcha. Nice.
So yeah, I'm going to put out an album. I'm going to put out a live album.
Peter Frampton.
Yeah, it's going to be
Peter
like
Frampton style.
the Cramps did one called The Cramps Live at the Peppermint Lounge,
Mm.
which it doesn't even exist. It's not even a real club, but they just put on a live performance and called it that. And that's what I'm going to do with the first Vitriolics album. It's going to be a live performance, probably with a movie accompanying it. You know, like a live video of us playing.
Why not?
I'm going to turn that into a download because I'm really into live music. I've always judged a band not by their albums but their live performances. So I'm going to put out this really super rowdy, punk rock album that's live.
Let me ask you this now, because it's probably the question you get asked the most, or maybe one of the most. How many tattoos do you actually have? Do you know? Or are they just blend?
I like to say just one big one.
Right. So you were kind of like, am I wrong?
So.
Yeah, you were early in the game to the level of tattoos that you have. Am I wrong? Because like a lot of people are getting neck tats now, or full body sleeves and all that. Didn't you do that like in its infancy years ago? I mean, like way back.
Yeah, this trend that you see with tattoos is something that's been in Southern California for decades.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new to us.
I loved tattoos when I was younger till I found out there were needles involved, and then I couldn't get rid of them, and I was afraid it wouldn't match, which I was just had my own issues. And then I flipped, and then I was an anti-tattoo. I think it's very unique. It just wasn't my thing anymore. What made you gravitate towards tattoo? Was it because of the neighborhood, the music, the friends?
Yeah, it's very much a part of Southern California culture, working class culture. A lot of our uncles and fathers and brothers and cousins are prisoners.
Yes.
They're repeat offenders. They get caught up in the, the horrible penal system that fucks people's lives over, and that culture bleeds out into the streets, and we pick it up. And it's like I said, where I'm from, it's not uncommon to see a guy as tattooed as me at all. There's guys way more than me. So, it's just I always thought it was sexy. I love the way tattoos look, and I thought about it for a long time before I got them. I started when I was about 24, but I never get sick of them. Everyone's like, "Aren't you going to get sick of those someday?" It's like, no. It's like getting sick of my nose or my ears.
Right. You don't regret like any of them? You just love them all, right? Like they're their own.
I love them all, yeah. I mean, there's a couple that I've had covered up. I used to have my band's name tattooed across my chest, but we broke up, so I got this giant, huge piece.
Crazy.
Covers it up. But no, I love them. I'm getting more. My tattooer is absolutely great guy. If you're in Southern California, go see Stan Corona at Good Time Charlie's Tattoo Land in Anaheim. He's my guy. He's done a majority of my work, like 90% of it.
Wow.
He's see the detail in what he does.
You're unbelievable. Yeah.
That's the Meteors. That's the band I was talking about that kind of started the psychobilly scene. That's I tattoo my favorite bands on me.
You did everything all the way up to your neck, but not your face or head. Is that going to ever be done? Like you see a lot of these guys?
No, I mean, I think on this side, there's a rose that comes up kind of high on the back of my, I don't know if you can see it. See it right there. But
I know it because I know your photos. Right.
Yeah. But no, not my head or my face. No.
No. That's interesting.
No, I just, I don't know. I started shaving my head really young. I was like going bald, and I just
cleaned it up.
Yeah, I'm like, let's expedite this process.
So,
but yeah, in the music scene, I mean, it's not mandatory or anything, but yeah, a lot of people had really cool tattoos, and I met my tattooer through the scene, and Good Time Charlie's is like a real old school tattoo parlor. It started by Good Time Charlie, this guy Creeper, and a couple other people, Jack Rudy, and all these people that started tattooing in the 70s in East Los Angeles. They had a Good Time Charlie started there, and they moved to Anaheim, I don't know, like 25 years ago or something. But it's not this new hipster kind of tattoo parlor like where
Sure.
It looks like an old tattoo parlor, and the guys there are all like OG tattooers, like really good tattooers who've been through some shit, seen some life, and it's like a real place. It's a real fucking place.
Like the place like in the 70s, like there's in Southern Cal where I lived in Carlsbad, but like if you go to Cardiff or like Encinitas and stuff, these guys, it almost looks like a bar that's been closed down. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
And there's just not even, you can't even sometimes see inside of them. They're not like nowadays where you go to a mall or somewhere, the glass window. Like it almost looks scary to go inside these joints, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the real thing. And it's kind of like my version of a men's club in a way. We're all there with our shirts off and we're all just showing off our tattoos and getting tattooed, and a bunch of really tough, real motherfuckers that have lived the same kind of life that I've lived, and I feel quite comfortable among them. But yeah, they're scary dudes.
We could talk forever.
We're all a little bit scary. We're all a little bit scary. We've all
Yeah, we all got a past.
Yeah.
Christian, so we could talk
really
forever.
Really professional, and just some of the best artists in the world.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see those guys in California because I've been to every freaking town, I think, at this point, up and down, from there all the way to the top, back down. Yeah. And it was funny when you start talking about California, how people perceive that place to be a certain place. Like wherever you go, people are going to be rolling out red carpets, which is quite the opposite of that, as you know, especially LA. Downtown LA.
It's a small fraction of what the town is.
I talk about that too because I'm fortunate enough to visit I was fortunate enough to visit every city in North America multiple times. And no matter what town you kind of talk about, if you talk about Oklahoma, you think they're this way. You talk about a guy from Boston, you think they're this way. You kind of talk about Chicago, you think it's this way. And the reality is a lot of times some things are like that, but most are nothing like that, which I found quite
Chicago, man, there's some good people out in Chicago, man. We play some.
Yeah, that's a great place.
There's some real tough crews out there of skinheads and punks and stuff out there. Real tough dudes, man. Real people. Real working class people that struggle, and it's cold, and it's just really tough crowds out there, man. But really, accepting and loving people.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I love it there.
Yeah, that's got to feel like almost home to a certain degree because you have so much family like us that were born and raised there.
I got so many, family members out there, and I've been through, and you're so busy and you're so fly by night. You're just coming in and going out, coming in and going out. You don't have time to sort of relax and enjoy the place,
Yeah, for sure.
Even San Francisco, which is like one of my favorite cities, like most of the times I've been there is coming to town to play and then leaving.
Yeah.
And about 5-6 years ago, a girlfriend of mine at the time, we actually went up there to just relax and enjoy ourselves, and it was great. I love that city a lot too.
Yeah,
a lot of the traveling that I've done across the country has just been like boom, 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 boom. It's exhausting.
Yeah, me too. I know what you're saying. You go in and out. Some days 1 day, sometimes 2 days. You really don't even understand what you're doing sometimes. You're just in and out. You're in and out, as you know.
So true.
Yeah,
I got so much family back there, and my immediate family I'm very close with. My mom, my sister, my niece, and my mom's side of the family. But my dad's side, they're not real close. They don't commingle very often. And I only went to Chicago as a kid one time to visit with the family when I was little. So
yeah,
all this crazy. Coronavirus shit is over. I'm taking the book on tour. I'm doing a book tour.
That's awesome.
Here and in Ireland. I'm talking to some people over there to go to Dublin and do a reading over there.
That's awesome. That's great.
Playing music. I got friends, here and in Europe, and we played in England and stuff like that. So, I'm gonna, connect with people in. Well, I was on a podcast with this girl, Alyssa Flores. She's got a podcast in Austin, Texas. She wants me to come there and do a reading. She wants, I got friends in San Francisco that could set up a reading in Portland and Seattle, and
that's great.
So yeah, I'm gonna hit different cities all over the country. And, in Oakland, there's this crew that we used to play for called the BP Psychos. They're like this Oakland motorcycle club. And I'm going to go up there and do a reading with a bunch of tough, rowdy bikers from Oakland,
Yeah.
which will be fun.
And we used to collect, we had vending equipment in biker bars in Florida, the South. And the last biker bar we went into, I'll never forget. It's a big group, and we put equipment in there, and then it was like a house, I guess you could say, where they all kind of lived. And it was a fluke because there was a chain of restaurants. I don't want to name it, but one of the girls that worked there was dating one of the head biker dudes, the leaders. So that's how we ended up meeting him. And he's like, "Hey, would you mind throwing in a dartboard maybe and like a tabletop?" We're like, "Sure, we'll do it for you." Like he's like, "I don't care if it's used or not. I think we even had it outside." So to make a long story short, he's like, "Here's my card." And I said, "Oh, okay, thanks." The card said, "Our business is none of your fucking business." And then it had his phone number. It was hysterical. But he's like, "Come in the house whenever you want, collect money, stick it here. Don't ever worry about anybody." But it's interesting when you get around. We were in, again, so many different bars, and it could be some were nightclubs like discos, and then we were in punk places, and then we were in bisexual places, gay bars, obviously gentlemen's clubs, all different types of people, right?
Yeah.
And it's when you grow up in the environment, and I'm sure like you did, especially LA, it's when you realize how kind of as different as we all are, we really all have so many similarities as well, even though we live totally different lifestyles.
Yeah. San Francisco was especially like that. You would have punks, you'd have skinheads, you'd have bikers, transvestites, gay people, all in the same crowd, It's such a culturally diverse place that we would have, all kinds of people from all walks of life coming to see our shows. And, we had that kind of appeal. But, we have a lot of, like, criminal element in our crowd. Like tough people that, have to struggle. And, this thing with this virus and everything, it really sheds a lot of light on economic inequality and just all the things that we're doing wrong as a society. It's really bringing to life, bringing to light all that's fucked up, and the way things are structured. And like I said, I lost a lot of, Uncle Robert. I watched Uncle Robert die, too young, with a lot of regret, in his eyes, and friends that just never pulled out from mental illness, like breakdowns that they had that they never recovered from.
Yeah.
People lost to drug addiction that just are never going to pull out of it.
Yeah.
Like people that are going to do it until they either die or just throw away all their lives. I lived very much on the edge all those years, right on the fringes of society, where terrible violence would happen and terrible tragedy would happen. And you saw firsthand people realizing how addicted they are, and how, how lost and out of control they are to the drugs.
Sure.
And so I've seen a lot of sickness, and a lot of the ills of society are in this book, in the background of Southern California, all the name places, Long Beach, downtown LA, Vernon, Cudahy, Compton, Watts. I talk about this city and try to describe it, and the economic woes of the working class people of this town, which is not talked about enough. Like I said, everybody has this weird perception of like Hollywood stardom, like that's what LA is.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it.
Yeah, Robert, do you feel fortunate sometimes? Because I grew up like with some of my family members, close family members, I think we both grew up around a lot of drugs. I did, especially alcohol. And then my father being in a nightclub. And then me even being at a young age, being involved with going to bars at young ages, again, being in Florida. I used to say getting Coke was easier than getting a drink, and we were, for some weird reason, and my mother always talks about it, like somebody was looking over me, but I never was into drugs. I drank a little bit here and there, but I never got caught up with, I used to feel bad for a lot of those people. I used to look at them as lost souls, right? But a lot of my family members ended up on drugs, alcoholics, friends, colleagues, everyone, a lot died. When you're in that lifestyle, it's kind of weird when you're with them, you're hanging with them, they're your friends, but you're not one of them. It's very interesting, but like you're in a band with them, right? I work out with guys. Let's say we're on steroids. I hung out with guys that were cokeheads. I hang out with guys that were, that did heroin or this, but I never judged them to the point.
Yeah, me neither.
I loved them for who they were, but I never got caught up with the mess. But I don't know if like God was protecting us, but you learn so much being in those environments too than just saying, if we weren't in those environments, maybe we wouldn't have the patience, I think sometimes.
Oh, I'd lose my patience all the time.
Well, you were at a high level because you had to work with them too. I work with them where bar owners are alcoholics, drug addicts, whatever. But I just go in and I have to deal with them and I leave. In your case, a little more extreme.
Yeah, I would get pissed at them all the time. I'm just like, what the fuck, man? I mean, it was always some kind of fucking drama about some shit, dumb shit.
Why didn't you ever fall into it, you think? Why didn't you ever start doing drugs, you think?
Well, because I grew up with Uncle Robert.
Right, that's what I always said. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You guys know back in Chicago, you guys even in your branch of the family know the stories of Uncle Robert, and you guys have no illusions about the kind of life he lived, and I grew up around that. Not just him, but other people that I saw. My family were more drinkers, and they were the kind of people that worked hard all week long, got up and, walked to work and ate healthy and all that stuff. But come Friday, Saturday night, man, it was on with drinking. Like, it's funny. I observe that a lot with people. Like, they have like high school behavior, even when they're in their 30s and 40s. They drink like teenagers. They get blackout drunk. You know what I mean? They're still reverting back to this sort of adolescent kind of behavior. And with me, I saw what heroin did already. I knew about that, so I never fucked with heroin. In the punk rock scene, unlike other scenes, like it's really in California, it was like alcohol and speed. That was kind of what fueled and it kind of reflects in the music. It was like meth, but not to where it's like your teeth are falling out, but you take like cross tops. They used to sell them in fucking liquor stores. These little white amphetamine pills. You could just fucking buy them at the liquor store back then.
Yeah.
Mini, that's what they were called, mini thins. And, you'd pop those or you'd snort some speed and you'd be drunk. And that's what the music, that's the energy, the slam dancing. And I mean, not everybody's on it, but that was how we fucked around. And, we smoked plenty of weed and stuff like when I was in my 20s, what I mean? But yeah, it was mostly a speed and alcohol fueled scene. It wasn't a heroin scene. There were some people that fell down that rabbit hole, but no, I never fucked around. And the drugs I did do was dabbling. It was I never had an addiction to anything. And it was all just mostly, I mean, the speed part was like just because we're on tour, you're traveling 15, 16, 17 hours, and you got to get on stage and put on this really rowdy live performance, that's very physical. And, you do it just to, whoa, okay, let's go. Like it was that kind of thing. It was, therapeutic.
I always looked, having a father that owned a nightclub and a go-go club and then a restaurant as well, I looked at alcohol as a business. from a very young age, not as a place to go and enjoy yourself, if that makes sense, because I seen, even my mother was a bartender, was with my father originally in the bar, and then she left to go bartend as well in other places. And then a lot of people would be like, how do you grow up in a bar and not drink or become an alcoholic or not end up in the drugs or whatever, because you were just surrounded by it? But the reality was, I used to just look at that as a business. And when I started doing vending with my dad, I don't care if I was in a gentleman's club, if it was a full nudity, whatever. I called myself a veteran. By the time I hit 21, I was already in the bar and nightclub industry for 20 years. When I turned 21, I felt 50 being around that for so long.
Yeah.
The music, the atmosphere. But again, I still almost look at, I never like getting drunk, but I just looked at it differently than everyone else. I'm not saying it's normal, and it wasn't my dad's fault that, those people were doing those things or whatever the case may be, but it was interesting to be in it without doing it. Right.
My body can't handle an addiction. I just start feeling like shit if
Me
I'm
too.
drinking too much. I can't do it. Some people have this endurance.
I know. I can't handle a hangover. I'm miserable for 3 days. I'm like an asshole.
Yeah. I was just talking to my girlfriend about that. I'm just like, I can't. I'm a good drinker. That's the whole thing. Like, I didn't used to like to drink so much in my 20s and 30s, but like I'm at an age now where I thoroughly enjoy the feeling of alcohol, drunkenness. Like I know how to pace myself, and I drink water in between each round, and I like to cook and listen to music and watch films. Like I'm a fun, warm drunk, but that's almost bad because then you like get in a habit, so I mostly stay away from I haven't had a drink in like 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I still drink, but I never get one or two, but I'm not.
But I enjoy it. I wish I had the endurance to like Charles Bukowski was this hardcore drinking, writer.
Right.
And he drank and drank and drank, and he talked about it. It's a special endurance that some people have. It takes work,
right,
and sort of a resilience that a lot of people don't have. I don't have it. I never had a problem walking away from anything.
Me neither. Not with anything like that. I don't.
Yeah. My formative years, I was a boxer. I fought for 10 years from the age of 8 to 18.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you real quick. Let's wrap up with that.
Yeah.
So you went from theater to boxing and then into music.
I was doing both at the same time. All through school, that was my sport. I played 1 year of football. I was a nose guard. I was captain of defense. I was pretty good at it. But I knew I didn't have the natural talent to pursue that at all, or the size,
right,
to play the positions I wanted to play. I wanted to play like linebacker, I think.
Me too. That's what I used to play, and then I never grew anymore. Middle linebacker and running back were my two positions. Then I stopped growing when I was younger. Yeah. And then later
I played 1 year of that when I was a freshman. I was terrible at baseball. I played when I was a little kid. I hated it. But there was a boxing gym in our park in Fullerton. There's a park called Chapman Park. And when I was real little, it was my preschool, the building.
Wow, yeah.
Little, civic center in the park.
Yeah.
And then when I got a little older, it became the Fullerton Boxing Club. Yeah, my coach was a tough dude. He fought in Vietnam. He fought 2 tours in Vietnam and got shot. He was this guy, Jim Livingston. He's a tough Irish dude that actually lived part of his life in Watts. Imagine being a white Irish kid in Watts.
That's crazy.
That's how fucking tough he was.
Right.
Fought in the Marine Corps and opened this gym. He when he was in the Marines, he fought in the Philippines and stuff like that. Grew up boxing, and he was the president of all the Southern California Police Athletic League boxing clubs, throughout all Southern California.
Yeah.
And he was a ref in the '84 games. He was an official in the '84 Olympics. So he was very well connected to the pool of talent that we have here in Southern California. Is a ton of great talent, boxing talent comes out of Southern California.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, Oscar De La Hoya and people like that, Paul Gonzalez, Hector Lopez.
Yeah.
Indian Red Lopez. It goes on and on.
Oh, yeah, Indian Red Lopez. That's right.
Yeah, that's all LA, and I just went in there as a little kid one day and started doing it. And in the early years, from the age of 8 to maybe 12, I wasn't that serious about it, but I was learning the basics. But from about 13 to 18, I was a serious competitor, and I was competing in tournaments all over. And most of my experience and most of my skills came from the gym wars that we had, I was a journeyman sparring partner.
I was going to say, gotcha.
That's
how a lot of people start.
Rotate. Huh?
Yeah, that's how a lot of people start. You're basically a punching bag. You're a sparring partner for people that are excelling, but that's what helps you excel.
Exactly. So my very first regular sparring partner was the North American Featherweight Champion, this guy named Jimmy Byrd. And he was the champ of Canada, United States, and Mexico. And I used to fight him every night.
Yeah.
So awesome. And Gabriel Ruelas, who became a big professional, champion. I used to fight. I fought him 3 or 4 times.
That's awesome.
He was one of the 10 the Goosen brothers, Jim here in North Hollywood, or Van Nuys. Goosen brothers are a big boxing family, and they'd bring, Gabriel Ruelas down to fight me. My coach's whole thing was he would always be like, "So what'd you learn tonight?" And I'm like, "God, I'm all beat up." And I'm like, "Who was that dude?" And he's like, "Oh, that was just the guy who won the silver medal for Mexico in the '84 Olympics." That's who he just fought. He wouldn't tell me until afterwards, so I wouldn't be scared. But yeah, I fought a lot of great fighters, and that really kind of kept me out of a lot of trouble,
Sure.
And kept me away from drinking for the most part. I had a lot of friends growing up that were, drinking and taking a lot of acid, weed, and stuff like that. That was pretty regular, but boxing kept me pretty disciplined. It taught me a lot about strength and determination and how far you can go if you work. You work this hard, you can go this far. You work this hard, you're only going to get to here. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it really applies to everything. Like you have to have discipline to get where you're going, and you know whether or not you've worked hard enough to get where you're going. So it taught me that, and it just made me kind of hard.
Yeah.
I see a lot of these kids in fights today. They get punched once in the face and they're down for the count. Like I've had my fucking head pounded thousands of times.
Yeah. Every battle makes you that much tougher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always said
if I got a punch in the face in a fight, it doesn't even it hardly affects me even. You know what I mean? Because I've been hit so many times. I know how to take a punch.
Sure.
And I hit like a mule. I hit really hard. By the time I was fighting, when I was 18, I was already 190. So I was already fighting at like cruiserweight, heavyweight at 18. And when I got to that level of fighting big dudes, it's just too much punishment.
It's hardcore.
It hurts.
It's hardcore.
Yeah, I hit really fucking hard. That was my thing.
That's awesome.
I hit really hard. Like I really do.
I grew up in the boxing game a little bit. My oldest and closest friend right now owns probably the #1 boxing gym in Chicago, Franklin Street Gym. But he was fighting the Golden Gloves when we were teenagers. My father was a Golden Gloves champ too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my father, who the hell? I can't remember all these things. Somebody in his military school, a champ, taught him. But we were on a lot of boxing. I was a much better wrestler than a boxer. But I've been around boxing.
Wrestling's tough.
So... Anyway, I was in a ton of sports, but we loved boxing growing up, especially who didn't in the 80s and 90s, obviously. So,
yeah, well, like Uncle Robert and my dad, they fight like they were boxers.
Yeah.
I mean, they have perfect form. They throw perfect punches but they never did box. But they just knew how to do it. It was just innate in our nature. But yeah, Uncle Robert and my dad threw punches like they've been fighting for 20 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it kept me out of trouble. I was in the school newspaper, and it was good for me. It was a good discipline to have that kind of structure in my life. But I probably had around 180 fights, something like that.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, and the amateurs, that's pretty standard. You
fight
all the time. Tournaments, I only fought like maybe 20, 30 times. But the gym wars,
Oh yeah.
sparring wars that we had
Yeah.
were way more brutal.
Exactly.
Way
That's where
more
the
brutal.
beatings are coming.
Yeah, because in tournaments, in the amateurs, they're pretty safe. You know, if you get cut, they stop the fight. You know,
Yeah.
they're pretty safe. But in the gym wars, man, they were just battles, man. Round robin battles. Like one guy would get out of the ring and another guy would get in.
Sure.
You know, we're switching out. You know, sparring partners fighting 5-6 rounds.
Yeah.
It was brutal, man. It was tough. And that's where all of my experience came from. Was from sparring.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to wrap this up because I got to do more sessions with you.
For sure, man. I mean, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to go too much and give too much away. I want to have follow-ups with you.
Yeah.
Regarding the book, we could talk about other things as well. I think I usually go about an hour. I think me and you are at an hour. This is the longest podcast I've ever done, hands down. I usually only do an hour, but I love listening to you. You got so many great stories.
Thanks, man. I talk a lot. I have a lot.
For sure. And
I wanted to mention
tell me
the novel Love Lost Long Beach.
Yeah.
Here it is. Here's me on the back. This is available on every. It's going to be available in every capacity. As an ebook, it's already out. Mm-hmm. As a printed novel, it's already out. And in a couple of weeks, the audio version will be out. I recorded the audio version, and it's all uploaded now. And then they got to review it, and then it's going to be on Audible.com, so you can listen to it as an ebook. I narrate it, and I spent 8 months doing that. That was really hard. Was doing the audio book. But,
yeah, I got 2 books. I have yet to do the audio. Everyone says you should do it, but it's time consuming, man.
It is, yeah, it is. It's hard. It's hard because you're trying to get it just right and you fumble words.
Oh, it's forever. Every sentence.
Yeah, every sentence. It's like a 70,000 word document, you know, so it's like 300 pages. And it took me 8 months to cut it together and put the sound effects. And I was playing the score on keyboards. I did score on the keyboards. And my buddy in North Hollywood, if you folks ever find yourself in the Valley or in Los Angeles, go to SKR Studios in North Hollywood. My buddy Ian Down is a sound engineer. He records there, and he's mastered this audio book. And throw him some business. SKRstudios.com, IanDown.com. Yeah, he did a great job, and so it'll be available in every way. So if you don't want to buy an ebook, you want to hold a book in your hand, you can do that. But if you wanted an ebook, it's there too. And if you want to listen to it, audiobook, keep an eye out.
For sure. Tell them your website again, just in case they want to.
ChristiaanPasquale.com.
And don't forget the 2 A's.
Yeah, ChristiaAan. And then Pasquale is PASQUALE.com. Type that in, takes you to my website. Click on the images that you want to buy, and all my books are for sale on there. I got 4 books in all, and you can buy them all on my website. You can check out my podcast, This Face Made for Radio. There's a link for that.
Yes.
My SoundCloud account. You can check out my discography. All the songs that the Slanderin did is on Discogs. There's a link for that. So pretty much everything I do be on that website.
That is awesome. I'm so excited to do this too, because we have so many family members on the CELENZA side, and they don't really know who you are. You know what I mean? Truthfully, you may be friends on Facebook, but they're always asking me, hey, who's Christian? What's Christian about? And if they didn't even see your movie, I talk about that. They always see us communicating. I try to share. You post on my wall. I think I post shit on yours. We share as we can. But this will be a nice, I think, intro, because we always want you, the family. We have the family picnic every year.
Yeah.
And we'd love for you to come to that. I mean, we talked about it for many, many years. This year, we're obviously not having it because of Corona, but if you ever do come to Chicago, I'd love it to be a time either for a wedding or something in that nature where you get to see everyone instead of maybe just a few of us. And I'm in Florida as well. But anyways, they want to meet you. And
I love that. Yeah.
Oh, my God. They talk about your father.
The whole thing with the book is like now that it's written, as well as anybody, it's all about promoting your book after that. I don't want to use it for, line my insulation in the walls. I want to, I want these books to fly off the shelf. I want it in bookshelves, and I want to be doing readings and all over the country and pushing my product. And if I get to visit with the family in the meantime, that'd be great.
I was talking, Carmela CELENZA, my Aunt Carm, right?
Yeah, sure, Aunt Carmela, sure.
Yeah, her and my father are the last of the Mohicans of our generation, right? And my father was born much later. His mother had him at 42 years old. But I was on the phone last night for an hour and a half, and she's telling me all the history of my family in Italy, and we were kind of discussing how I'm the only one who really communicates with a lot of people in Italy still, our family members. And after she goes, really, there goes our history of no one's going to be able to tell me anymore, truthfully, once my Aunt Carm goes. All the uncles are gone. My dad doesn't really know a lot. He's never even been to Italy. It's not his fault, but he had no idea. And my Aunt Carm last night had me on the phone for an hour and a half yesterday, and I was going through the history. And like you were talking about with Robert, your uncle, like when that goes, it's gone, right? I have no one to, I guess I'd have to do a family tree, but
I mean, that's why I made the documentary.
For sure.
I wanted to capture, my mom's side and my dad's side of my family history. And it's called Angels and Oranges because, we exist on that border between Los Angeles County and Orange County. And, so that's where I grew up and that's where my family landed and, my background. And I rushed to do that because people get old and they die and then it's all lost. So I'm sure there's a much richer history back, behind it all, but I captured what I could in the film. So,
And
if anybody wants to get to know me, read my books and look at my documentaries. I put my life on, with all this going on, everyone's like, you got to appreciate your life. It's like, no shit. I've been appreciating my life and documenting it for 28 years.
Yeah.
All the special moments and all the meaningful things that happened to me in my life go into my work. So I've appreciated it, and
and you taught us a ton, a lot of things even my father didn't know about his family, right? By you studying it. And that was amazing in its own self. I didn't know a lot of things you told me as well. So it was like a history channel in our own family. It was just like, it was like a real life family tree coming together, like, and just learning about everybody. It was very,
we have great stories. Our family have great stories. We're immigrants too, our families. I'm only second generation American. It was my grandfather came here when he was 16. Yeah. And then my dad, then me, you know what I mean? So.
And my father, as much as he loved your father went on and evolved, and then he saw pictures of him throughout his life that he didn't see for so long, and he didn't know certain things he went through. And same with his cousin Robert and your other uncle and, your mother and all these different people, because a lot of times we think we know people, but the reality is we only know them for the time period that we were with them. And then as they leave, we don't, like my dad saw your dad in 1976, I think, or 5, never saw him again. And then my father moved to Florida, and I know Victor, your dad, was like, why didn't you come to California? And I even thought my dad would go to California, but the family was still, they had his brother-in-laws and sister, and they all had condos in Lauderdale and Boca and Pompano. But your dad was like, Rich, why didn't you come with me? You know what I mean? So,
in some way, I mean, while making the film and while writing this book, I realized that I didn't have the best perspective on what my dad's life was like either, in a way. You know what I mean? Like, even though he was never far away and he visited regularly, he died so young. He was only 48, 49 when he died. And, we connected when I was, a teenager. We became really close, like brothers. But even in that period of time, I don't think I really got to know him inside out as much as I would have liked, so.
Yeah, and he went on to have other kids like my father did. I don't know if you go through this, but me and my dad are almost like brothers because he went on later to have more kids. I was, he had me when he was young. Yeah. And we sound alike, obviously, and I take on a lot of his mannerisms. His kids probably didn't as much. And being involved with his life in a nightclub and, just growing, we both kind of grew together, even though I was a baby, but, you kind of. Yeah, and it was a different time and space then. We weren't preoccupied by a lot of things. When you grew up in the 70s, you know what I mean? It was just, we kind of worshipped our parents a little bit differently. We were with them.
Yeah, my dad was a total superhero. You know, he was great looking, and he was dashing. He had great style, and he had a lot of women. My dad started getting girls pregnant when he was 16. He had his first kid when he was 17, and then the second when he was like 20, and then me and my sister were with my mom, and then Vito with Vito's mother, who he was with for the rest of his life until he died.
Right.
So there was 5 of us all together. My brother Joey died when he was 6 from leukemia.
Oof.
But my sister Michelle and me and my sister Nicole and then Vito, and there's a double-edged sword to being as good looking as my old man was. My dad was a really good looking guy, and so he had women, any woman, pretty much that he wanted. So he kind of mistreated them a little bit because he was like, hey, if you don't like it, bitch, hit the road. I got a multitude of options anytime. So he kind of became a little bit spoiled with beauty, being a beautiful guy. Kind of was kind of a problem because he couldn't really get along in the world because he had all these women chasing him for alimony and child support and stuff like that,
Sure.
And so he never really got to, I don't know, he didn't accomplish anything. He spent most of his life just outrunning child support payments and stuff like that.
It's crazy, yeah. I used to go around and say, my mother and father were so attractive looking people. And like people, if they say you're handsome or something stupid, I'd be like, you don't know, my father's $1 million. He's Italian, dark skin, blue eyes. You know what I mean? It looks like he's right out of Europe. My mother was very extremely beautiful, and then they had us at a young age, so we got to see their beauty in their youth as well. Like my brother and sister have, they don't know my father from a nightclub owner, right? Or they don't know him in his youth, in his 20s, and we were around and we both love our mother so much, me and you, because we were raised by them, right? So
my mom's amazing.
So thank God we had our mothers. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, that's where I think a lot of who we became is because of our mothers, obviously. I mean,
my mother and my grandmother did everything. And my grandmother was really the anchor that held us all together. She, let us stay in her home. And, I grew up in the same house my mom grew up in, had the same teachers in school. And so she was really like the rock, the solidarity that kept us safe and, very strong.
Yeah.
Very strong.
I had 2 grandmothers. I had 3 women because my mother and my mother's mother was only like 15 years apart. So most people thought me and my mother were sister brother because she had me at 18 or 19. But my grandmother was in her early 30s and I'm hanging out with her.
Yeah.
And then my great grandmother from Italy was around too. And she lived in 93, but I had, I was always with the 3 of them. And then my mother getting a divorce at a young age, I spent so much time with them.
Yeah.
So, and I think you did as well. You spent a lot of time with your mother and your grandmother.
I stayed with my Italian grandmother for a short time in my early 20s, and when I was about 20,
awesome.
Briefly, right after the LA riots, I stayed with her in Norwalk, which is even closer to downtown LA. And my grandma Pasquale took on the burden of Uncle Robert's addiction, and he stayed with her most of his adult life, kind of sponging off her,
Yeah.
So she lived a kind of poor life, and she, that house they grew up in was very tiny and not so great a neighborhood in Norwalk. And she lived dealing with Robert. Even though my father offered to kick him out 1,000,000 times, she wouldn't let him. And, he stayed there and just kind of sucked off her, and the place fell apart because she was old and he wasn't doing anything to help.
Sure.
A lot of tragedy there. A lot of tragedy.
Yeah. All right, brother, I'm going to wrap it up there. I will hit you up later. I'll let you know when I'm going to post this thing. There's my damn
awesome,
glasses.
man. Thank you for having me on. And thanks everybody for listening. And I hope you enjoy the novel.
Yeah, we got to do more. I'll order it and we'll kick it in the ass. I got to do more of these with you. You're one of my most, I look up to you, brother. I'm always trying to do things and I look at you and I go, I'll bet you my cousin Christian's working on something. I got to get my head out of my ass because I know I always love doing something, but as soon as I get a little lazy, I'm like, wait a minute. I got to get to work here. I know he's up to something. So
I'm
it's
always up to something, man. That's it. That's my
yeah,
life.
I love it. All right, brother. You inspire a lot more people than you think. I'm going to tell you right now.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I love you, man. Thank you very much.
You too, brother. All right. Take care.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
You too.